My name is Emmett Kaczmarek. I'm with the Dell EMC Global Technology Office. My role is that I work with our strategic and enterprise customers to help them understand our data protection portfolio, where we're at and where we're going in terms of data protection over the next 6, 12, 18, and 36 months. The other facet of my job is that I take direct feedback from our customers that say, hey, Emmett, that's great that that product or that feature is coming in 12 months, but we needed it yesterday. Or Dell EMC's 3-year direction roadmap's going like this. Our 5-year roadmap is going like this. Why does it make sense for us to continue to have conversations? So I take that direct feedback. Myself and my peers in the GTO sit down with our product managers and engineering twice a quarter in a process we called interlock. And with that feedback from our customers, we reprioritize and restack rank our initiatives. And really, that allows us to close the loop between what our customers are telling us, because you guys are the ones in the trenches. You're working day in, day out, and allows us to make sure that we're building the technology that's going to allow us to continue to protect those workloads and needs, not just today, but also in the future. So we know that the data center is changing, especially when it comes to a virtual environment. We've had this rise of convergence and hyperconverged. We've had this huge rise of software-defined data center as a whole. We have this now infrastructure as a service demands, being able to provide a cloud-like experience for our end users. And we're also seeing these challenges that have arisen with virtualization and with data growth as a whole. We've got VMs now that were applications that maybe 10 years ago were only under a terabyte in size, but now they're 10, 12 terabytes in size. And the daily change rate has gone up dramatically. And the traditional ways of protecting those workloads, using VADP for image level backups, just don't work anymore. We're having more stringent protection requirements. We need to make sure that everything's being protected, either because of GDPR or because of other requirements and regulations that are being handed down from us as an organization. And then we have shrinking protection windows. This is two sides. One is we need to make sure that as these VMs and as these workloads grow, we can meet that 8-hour, 12-hour backup window. But on the flip side of this is we need to make sure that we're hitting smaller and smaller windows, because we're now in a 24/7 operations, or we have needs of the organization to only have those backups occurring during small window periods as a whole. And so when I'm talking to customers on a regular basis, I get very similar themes that are related to what we're seeing out there. The first one is I need to be able to do more with less with my people. I need them to be IT generalists. I need to be able to allow the guys who are working, the VM admins, to also be able to leverage data protection. It has to be simple. I need to be able to provide that as a service, that cloud-like experience back to my organization. The days of having 2-week change management to stand up a new machine or a new application are done. They need to be able to not just stand up those machines and those workloads quickly, but also apply data protection around the needs. Either, like some of my customers refer to it as metallics, a platinum, gold, silver, bronze protection policy with that. And then ease of use. It needs to be easy, it needs to be simple, and it needs to be able to be delivered quickly. It needs to be software defined. Maybe I won't deploy it necessarily software defined today, but I need to have that choice to be able to deploy it that way in the future. And this is extremely important to me as I'm starting to explore the cloud, starting to look at things like VMware Cloud on AWS, start looking at extending in the cloud. And if I can deploy it software defined on-prem on the hardware of choice, it needs to also be able to be deployed in the public cloud in the same manner and mechanism. Those traditional stream-based backups, they just don't work anymore. These large VMs that I have, these applications that may have, they're virtualized now, they might have 15% daily change rate. I can't continue to do that traditional stream-based backup approach because by physics, it just won't let me move it across the wire. But two, the impact that it has to the end user, these VM stun issues that happen, I need to find an alternative. And then finally, I can't continue to throw bodies at the problem. I have to be able to do more with less. As my data continues to grow, I'm not getting more people to address it. So again, this goes back to that first point. I need to be able to have generalists. It needs to be simple. It needs to be easy. And so our focus at Dell EMC when it comes to data protection for VMware is on modernizing and transforming, as well as automation. Modernizing, making it simple, making it easy, making it deployable for our customers. We don't want it to be, a professional services engagement just to protect your virtualization workloads. From a transformational standpoint, being able to provide near instant data protection with zero touch, and also being able to extend into the cloud. And from an automation standpoint, this can start by integration with the actual VM admins, integrating natively within the vSphere web GUI, giving control down to the VM team so that you can leverage your data protection needs from the tool that you're in on a daily basis. But then extending that out, we've gone ahead and enabled from a REST API integration our entire data protection portfolio. So if you want to tie us in with Chef, if you want to tie us in with Puppet, we've got runbooks for those. You want to use ServiceNow to do your ticketing for your data protection policy, we can do that. You want to use vRealize or VROPS Orchestrator or VROPS from a reporting standpoint, you actually don't even have to write REST API code because we've got built-in plugins for those. And with those plugins, with vRealize and with vRow, we actually give you 16 default templates out of the gate that you can leverage in that automation journey. Now you look at other protection technologies in the marketplace today. The traditional approach is, hey, we're going to deploy a backup server or a media agent, and then we're going to have a disk pool that it writes down to. And then when that gets full, we're going to deploy another one. It's kind of like the little Energizer bunnies. We're going to drop another one in, drop another one in. All of a sudden, this just scales out and scales out and scales out. And the challenge is, every time it starts getting full, or every time we start having those resource needs, now we need to drop more and more in. Now, there's been this rise of hyper-converged data protection approach. And with these, they're leveraging network block, NBD transport, network block device transport. And instead of doing the traditional, we're going to push data down, it's pulling it across the wire. But because we're pulling it across the wire, we need a lot of network requirements with this. Every time we add another brick in, we need to add another 8 10 gig ports to actually move that data across the wire. And if we hit any 1 gig hops or any bottlenecks in there, well, all of a sudden we don't know exactly what our backup windows are going to look like. And so every time we need to scale, we need to take in networking into consideration with this. Now, our approach is different. From a Dell EMC perspective, when it comes to data protection for VMware, we are leveraging vProxies, small, lightweight OVAs that are actually automated in deployment. So it'll auto-deploy as your needs grow. And with these vProxies, we're going to integrate in with that change block tracking, and we're going to actually do source-side, client-side deduplication. As a result of this, we're only moving unique 4 to 12K segments across the wire. So from a networking standpoint, we only need 2 10 gig NICs. Day one, if you're using a traditional data domain, you're using our integrated data protection appliance or a data domain virtual instance. And even as you continue to grow, there's not additional networking needs. And as you're protecting your environment, and as your VM environment grows, it's going to auto-deploy and automate the process of backing up those VM and workloads that you need. Now, when it comes to leveraging from a restore perspective, we got multiple different options here. So we can do your traditional full image level recovery. We can do a file level recovery as well. We can do a change block tracking restore. So we actually don't even need to move all those blocks across the wire. And then we can do instant access. Now, we've been able to do instant access for a while now. Introduced it back in 2012, but at the time when we introduced it, you could only do 1 VM, and it took about 2 minutes to boot it up. Well, now we can do up to 34 VMs at once, boot them all up in 45 seconds, stream over 10,000 IOPS off the back of a data domain or an IDPA or a data domain virtual instance with under 20 milliseconds of latency. And we can expand this out as well, not just from a virtual machine instance, but also into applications like SQL and Oracle and tying them back to the OS. In addition to this, we can set and put in place dynamic policies. So we can say, hey, based on VM name, VM type, location, who it was deployed by, or just a default policy, we can define these and put these in place, and then when a new machine is stood up, will auto go grab and tag it based on the defined policies. I actually have some customers that are using this when they go and decommission a VM. And their policy is if the VM has decom in it, no longer apply backup policy. So now the great thing about this is as new machines get deployed in your environment, you can put policies in place to make sure that a machine is not missed during the backup process. Integration natively into the vSphere web GUI. Being able to control backups, restores, ad hoc, file level recoveries, instant access, add them into a policy, change a policy, and we can use role-based access as well to limit this. And this doesn't take away from actually putting the SLAs and the governance around it, so we can give control to the VM admin team to administer their own backups and restores, but also put in a SLA and a governance policy around it, a wrapper, to make sure that we're adhering to the organization's policy as a whole. So yeah, I can still go and do my ad hoc backups, I can do restores, but if it's not within that policy that the organization has set, it's either going to expire it off or it's going to add a new one in. So you look at our numbers in the marketplace, and this is taken from multiple different analysts out there. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but what I do want to show you guys is an actual case study. So this is an actual customer in the States. They're backing up and storing over 2.4 petabytes of data on 200 terabytes of physical disk. Their average backup window is under an hour. 85% of their backups complete in under an hour. And this is very characteristic of our actual customers out there today. And one of the things that we're able to do and where we get this is we have auto support styling home, and we're able to see actually what real customer data is like. We can provide an assessment for your environment and give you real world breakdown of what your expectations would be leveraging our technology. And one of the things we'll do on top of that as well is put in place, we've got over 72,000 systems deployed worldwide. So we know how these things are going to work, and we'll put together a letter of understanding around the sizing, around the assessment that says this is what we guarantee that you'll see over the next 1, 3, 5 years, and if we're wrong, we'll make it right. Now, what about this need around large applications that are virtualized? Or maybe there are applications that we've held off on virtualizing because we know once we do virtualize that SQL database or that Oracle database, I'm going to have a VM stun impact if I want to do an image level backup. There has to be a better way of addressing this. So we announced at VMworld our hypervisor direct integration. What this allows us to do is change the game completely from that traditional VADP backup. We're integrating in our technology at the hypervisor kernel layer, and we're actually going to split the writes. So you're going to still write down to that VMDK file, but we're also going to do a write to a local disk journal that from there, we're going to do change block tracking directly to a data domain, and we're actually going to then provide us now with application consistent as well as image level backups of the environment. So with this, we get a direct hypervisor path to the purpose-built backup appliance. We no longer have to snapshot a VM ever again, so this gets rid of any VM stun. We don't have to freeze that VM to create that snap, but we still get image level backup, and we're able to inject and get application consistency, because 9 times out of 10, the VMs that suffer from VM stun are those applications that we virtualized. So this allows us to completely change the game now because it's a whole new approach outside of that traditional VADP backup. And as well as eliminating the VM stun problem, we're also able to provide 5 times faster backups. From a hyper-converged to a full converged, we have multiple offerings there as well. You'll see later this month around the DX announcement with Nutanix running on Dell, the ability now to actually include in our data protection software-defined solutions as part of that build. And when you go and deploy Nutanix on those Dell servers, auto-deploy your data protection needs as part of that as well. We've taken that entire data protection portfolio stack and completely software-defined it. So you can deploy it as an OVA, as a VM, as a Hyper-V instance, as a KVM here by the end of the year. And then you can also deploy it up in the AWS as an AMI or out in Azure. And then if you want a fully integrated data protection in a box, our IDPA integrated data protection appliance, integrates in at the factory your traditional backup software, your reporting analytics. We're going to index that backup catalog on a nightly basis so you can get Google-like search. It's built on that industry-leading, proven deduplication technology of data domain for your actual storage repository in there. And so out of the gate in the IDPA, you're getting all your CPU, your servers, your storage. We're even including switching with this that you would need for your data protection environment. You don't have to dedicate anything now to that infrastructure for backup. So it's really backup in a box. They can start small, 34 usable terabytes. They can scale up to over 1 usable petabyte. And so you've got options and choice and flexibility here. So we can integrate in through the native vSphere web GUI. We can integrate in natively with vRealize and vRow and VROPS. And now with the introduction of VMware Cloud on AWS, we can actually natively integrate in with VMC. So we actually demoed this, Pat Gelsinger did at Dell EMC World. But we have native integration. We were the first ones, day one at VMworld when this was announced, that had full support and full integration here. And so it's within that actual vSphere web GUI for VMC. You've got your backup and recovery, and we even integrate in a recover point for VM technology here. And one of the things, you can go onto YouTube and see this, but one of the things that Pat demoed was being able to fail back using recover point for VMs from VMC, VMware on AWS, to the back on-prem within under 5 minutes and roll back to that 5-minute period before. So across here, we've got the capabilities to be able to run and protect workloads in the public cloud. We can do DR failover and burst in, converting those VM images into AMIs, running them in the public cloud for DR purposes if we need to, and we can do long-term retention out to the public cloud as well. We can put policies in place based on age that say after X amount of period of time, take this data in its deduplicated format and write it off to this object storage bucket. So not only are we leveraging now the economic efficiencies of object on AWS or in Azure, but now we're extending that 10, 20, 30 to 1 deduplication out there as well, minimizing down the amount of bandwidth needed and actually extending out the economic value of keeping that data available out there. Now, we've had the capabilities for a while, and you probably are familiar with the traditional way of, hey, it's just a CapEx purchase to get our technology. Well, we've also rolled out subscription-based as well as a pay-per-use model. So now you have different choices on how you consume our technology. We realize that organizations are shifting on how they want to procure. We also realize that maybe you don't want to make a 3-year investment in our technology. Maybe you just want to try it out for a couple months. Maybe you just want to do a 1-year subscription. You don't want that commitment, or you don't have to buy in and then have it turn into shelfware. We understand that. So we've also made our technologies available for free trial and download on the EMC website. So you can go and download and try out. You can get a data domain virtual instance, 500 gig instance for free, deploy it on-prem, deploy it in Amazon, and actually test it out and take it for a test drive. So across your needs from a virtualization standpoint, we got the ability to modernize and integrate in. We can give you the capabilities to fully automate your protection needs for your VM instances across the board. We can give you different consumption models, either from a software-defined data protection standpoint or a fully integrated data protection appliance, and give you choice and flexibility. Over 72,000 systems deployed globally, highest performance, and highest deduplication rate, which actually, at the end of the day, impacts your cost and your ability to protect your environment as a whole. I appreciate the time today, guys. That's all I got. If there's any questions, more than willing to answer them for you.